Hello, lovelies. Ashley asked a very interesting and nuanced question in the star ensemble space on Mighty Networks. And I finally gathered my thoughts enough to be able to answer it in a way I think that will be useful. So her question was, as you have gone through this process of moving and becoming she who lives in England and eats at delightful old pubs down the street, have you been uncovering and discovering, or have you been choosing who you've been becoming? Or is it some combination of both? My initial response was it's definitely a combination. But I think the way it's a combination will be useful. In Spotlight, we're getting really clear on the coordinates of our ambition. In other words, that future self, that most ambitious future self, the way she feels, the way she thinks, the way the textures and colors of her life, right? The coordinates that we can navigate towards. So for me, as she who moved to England, I had some coordinates that I knew I wanted to feel and I wanted to experience. And so in that way, I was navigating, I was choosing who I wanted to become. But there's enough room in the coordinates to allow for the flux and for the universe to give me options to choose from, to surprise me with things that I didn't know and therefore couldn't expect. Because that's part of future selfing that gets a little complicated, right? You can only project your future self and your idea of what you might be from what you know now, from your past, from the things you've learned about the world around you, from the muses that you've seen. You can only base it on what you know now, on who you are now. And that's how it should be, because obviously you expand and you build upon who you are now. But there is so much about the world that we don't know. And we don't know. So therefore, we can't include them in our future selfing. This was very apparent to me when I moved to England, because yes, I visited, and yes, this is where my roots are, but I don't know anything about living here. I found it madly useful to release most of who I was in the form of stuff, right? I came with four suitcases of clothing and bits and pieces, but most of the residue of who I was, the furniture, the trappings, the decor, all of that got released and left behind. So arriving here clean, so to speak, was useful. I had coordinates like I really wanted a space of my own. I wanted an office, if that was at all possible. I made a list of what my unicorn flat would be. And the reason I called it a unicorn flat was because I really didn't think it existed. So it wasn't a case of I'm manifesting this exact thing. I just wrote down a whole list of coordinates that I would love, of things that I would love this space to have, attributes, so that, it was just my wish list. And I really treated it as lightly as that. A space of my own was one of them, because there's this feeling of sovereignty that being able to own a room, metaphorically and literally, was something that I wanted to reclaim. Right, in the Sky Nest, as beautiful as the apartment was, my office was a little alcove in the bedroom. I wanted something that felt more distinct, more officey, right? And so I didn't put any parameters around that. I didn't say I wanted it to have a window. I wanted it to be, I didn't. I just said I would love to have a space of my own. What was fascinating when we started looking at listings, and we made a whole week's worth of listings to go and visit. We had like 8 appointments to go and view places. This was the third one, and the first 2 that we had to look at were perfectly fine. One was in a fairly grassy area, which we wouldn't have known if we hadn't gone to see, and the other one was fine. This one was the only one out of all 8 that had a separate room, and they didn't actually say it was an office. They said it was a small bedroom. It's not a small bedroom. It could maybe fit a single bed, but yeah. So when we had a look at it, because of this space, it felt right. But then I noticed all the other coordinates that matched, but not in a way I thought they would. So I wanted a place that was bustling. I wanted a place that had access, easy access to really good shopping, just really interesting stores and things. I wanted good walks. I need to be able to walk. So I wanted access to that. And I wanted it to be easy to rent. In other words, not so expensive that, you know, there's a lot of paperwork that goes into renting a place when you have no credit history in the country. So the lower the rent, the easier it makes that. And so that was part of the plan. This place ticked all the boxes, but here's the thing. It's in a village. It's not in a town. It's not in the city I thought it was going to be in. So that part was surprising. So my coordinates led me to a village where I really expected them to lead me to a city center or a town, somewhere that was obviously urban, more like the Sky Nest was, right? I didn't expect to be in a centuries-old building. I thought I would be in a, glass block of flats. So this is where the uncovering and the discovering kind of coincides with your own directions. You're directing your life. And this is why the future self coordinate work is so important. Because if you are following a particular feeling or following a frequency, a vibration, a way you want to experience life, then you can be offered all sorts of different ways to experience it that you don't know exist. So if I say, for example, I want to travel in style, I've just found out that there's like first-class rail tickets that are amazingly inexpensive by comparison, and it will take me to Paris in 4 hours in absolute luxury. I had always considered that to be something that, I would fly. Traveling in style now doesn't look just like flying, whereas before it looked like flying or cruising. Now I have rail. Who knows what else? Maybe, I don't know. I've just found out there's a fabulous ferry that'll take you to Rotterdam. So these are the things that I didn't know. But my coordinate of traveling in style had these options land in my lap, or land in my awareness, shall we say. So when we do our work together, we're not talking specifics necessarily. Our specifics are in the abstract of how you want to feel, how you want to experience things, the way you are going to, the energetics of how you are going to show up in your new life. That is the beacon. That is the coordinate you will navigate towards. What the scenery looks like, what the stage setting and what your costume looks like, that's the discovery part. So yes, it is both. You are directing and you allow for happenstance, because that way you get to take full advantage of the magic that the world is, and you get to be in the director's seat of your own life. I hope that's useful, and I will see you all next week.